What is going on, diehards, gambling degenerates, and MMA fans? It is Friday. That's right. The undefeated post-weigh-in show brought to you by Pub Sports Radio with lines presented by Superbook Sports. We're talking UFC 279, and what a show. What a show do I have for you today. The last couple weeks, they've been a little dull. They've been a little boring. Nothing really going on Fridays, but this week, we're our money's worth this week. We got a lot to talk about. And because we have so much to talk about, I have decided to bring along a special guest to help me break down the madness of this week's weigh-ins. You may know him from the Dog or Pass podcast, the sexier half of the Dog or Pass podcast, if I will. None other than Paul Shag himself. Paul, what's going on, buddy?
Not too much, but I got my tinfoil hat ready for any conspiracy heads out there. Oh, he's got one too. I
came prepared.
Yes, my dog's gonna be kind of a jerk. She doesn't really like tinfoil. She'll be kind of jumping in and out every once in a while. I'm like really, puppy training. I'm used to, still doing things while a dog is biting me. Well, that's not
all right. No sweat. We can have a second or a third commentator here on the show. No biggie. I'm glad you came prepared with the tinfoil hat. We are all set to get crazy. Dude, I mean, all right. You know what? We were supposed to go in order, start at the bottom of the card, talk about the weigh-ins. Nobody's here for that. Nobody's here for that.
Never bury the lead. That's what they say in TV. Never bury the lead.
Never bury the lead.
They don't want to hear us talk right now. We can talk about it later, but nobody's coming and being like, oh, I wonder what these guys think of Melissa Martinez versus Elise Reed right now. Come on.
Exactly. The 5 people that are here for Melissa Martinez versus Elise Reed, they can sit tight for just a second. Paul, what the hell happened today? So we had a fight move to a catchweight, and then we had, 3 weight misses, including the main eventer, Khamzat Chimaev, completely fumbling the bag, coming in 9 pounds overweight. And the UFC somehow managed to save this card. It's still a pay-per-view. And in my opinion, the new lineup is better than the one we had before. I don't know how they pulled this thing off.
I mean, the matchups are definitely a lot better, a lot more competitive, interesting fights to be. Chimaev's fight, I still think Chimaev absolutely smashes, but he's half of the favorite that he was against Nate Diaz. I mean, some of the conspiracy stuff kind of comes into play here where it's like, why did Kevin Holland and D-Rod, 2 guys that have, Kevin Holland has been trying to make waves at 170 pounds, and D-Rod has been always fighting at 170 pounds. Why did those guys get booked 2 weeks ago, kind of right after Kamaru Usman got knocked out by Leon Edwards, because they go, oh, crap, we got to run that back. We can't fast-track Khamzat to a title fight because, Usman's had the title for a long time. We've got to give him his due daps. I don't know. I almost kind of think that, this was all very, very good theater. I mean, the matchups end up
a little too convenient.
And I'm not one of those guys that's I believe in, all these matchups are fixed. No, but I think maybe this whole setup. Because, they still haven't released that embedded yesterday, right?
Yeah.
And, there were some talks about people throwing water bottles and stuff. It's we've seen way worse stuff. John Jones and Daniel Cormier absolutely, threw down in, in that type of scenario. Nate Diaz versus Conor McGregor. Water bottles also
actually threw
in that situation. They still went down. So it's the fact that they canceled that presser yesterday, something seemed off. But either way, yeah, the fights are definitely more competitive, more interesting now than they were before. There was no real way to bet. You were either betting Nate Diaz a long shot prayer or nothing with the prices that were available. But yeah, now I said all that stuff, the tinfoil hat can come off for a bit.
Yeah, man, I don't know what to make of it. I really don't, because you're right. I mean, maybe the matchmakers had the foresight to go ahead and go, you know what, there's a chance something goes wrong, and that's why they stacked this card with guys that are all right around the ballpark of each other, similar weight classes. And I'm with you. I don't buy the whole fixed fight thing, but I absolutely believe in setup fights. And like, that's what the main event was, right? This was a sacrifice of Nate Diaz to boost up the story or the legend of Khamzat Chimaev. That's exactly what the main event was. So I like these matches better. I think Diaz versus Tony is an age appropriate type of fight. It's one where both guys absolutely are getting a better fight. One of them can get their arm raised and go out on top or get back on track, however you want to say it. I think that's a whole lot more fun than, sanctioned murder with Khamzat destroying a man who we all know damn well he's just going to absolutely run through. Yeah, I like these matchups a little bit better, and I'm just happy we didn't lose a fight. For a second, when Holland started calling for the 5-round co-main event thing, which I think is a big deal, when he started calling for that 5 rounds co-main event, I was worried that was going to be what sunk it. Because if he stuck to his guns, if he said, no, 5 rounds or it's not happening, I thought there was a chance it might have fallen through.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing, and this is why, like, the conspiracy stuff kind of exists. Is like, what if this is the card that they wanted all along? But they could, a month or a few weeks out from this card, you could not say that a pay-per-view had Tony Ferguson versus Nate Diaz 3 weeks ago and try to sell this thing. Because people would be like, neither one of these guys want to fight since what, 2019? Like, it has, like, there's no way for you to sell it. You get into this week, you have all of this craziness, all this pandemonium, everything gets lost in the shuffle. All of a sudden, I mean, the real sketchy thing is, like, what really happened with Khamzat? Like, they said that the medical team stopped him from cutting weights. I don't know. It's all kind of fishy, and like, it's okay. Like, they're going to be great fights. It's going to be entertaining. It's really annoying. It's like, I had Tony Ferguson plus 266 against the Leech. I just thought that
I respect it.
I just thought it was just way too live or way too wide. Like, Tony had a reach advantage. I think the Leech is a good fighter, not a great fighter. Tony's only been losing to the best guys at 155, the best division in the world, or one of the best divisions in the world. There's debate, obviously, with 135. So, yeah, it's annoying for guys like us. It's just like you put in work early in the week. You get bets in. Sometimes you beat the market a little bit. But, I mean, welcome to the circus.
What are you going to do? Man, I'm glad that you jumped on here. First off, I appreciate your time breaking all this stuff and talking through the chaos with me. Been long overdue for us to jump on camera together here. I got lucky. I didn't get a bet in this week. I have yet to actually place a bet on UFC 279. It's a bit of a tough cookie, in my opinion, from a betting perspective. And now I'm kind of feeling like I dodged bullets. I was looking at the under, 2.5 in the main event, and that's gone, obviously. I think we've got some much better opportunities here for those top 3 fights now that things have been reshuffled a little bit. But I guess let's run through it real quick, man. Let's start at the bottom at this point. Johan Lainez, Darian Weeks. Johan Lainez looked massive, dude. He came in 171, Weeks 170.5. I was looking maybe at taking a stab at Weeks a little earlier in the week. I think he's a bit underrated. I don't think we've seen the ceiling for this kid. He looks like he's in great shape, but damn, he is so much smaller than Johan. I did not expect Johan to tower over him the way that he does. And he's one of these big physical guys, does everything with explosion, everything with power. That size and just imposing figure of his kind of gets me a little bit off of the Darian Weeks train. And on top of that, I heard an interview with Darian Weeks. He wants to get back to finishing. Before he made his UFC jump, he was finishing people on the regional scene. He said he's going to go out there and try to put this guy away, push a bit more of a pace. I'm looking at the under now, if I'm being honest, Paul. I really don't know that I trust Johan. Team Canada, you guys have been on the struggle bus lately. I'm sorry. I love my Canadian brethren, but you guys have been a little bit on the struggle bus. Yeah. So I don't really want to trust Johan, especially after his last fight, what we saw with his gas tank going down the way that it did. But I'll bet on some violence here. I don't mind that spot at all. Do you have anything on this first fight?
No, I was considering some late props for Darian Weeks just because I think I learned what you see.
Dog barking.
There's nothing out there. I was considering Darian Weeks, like some of the late props. They only kind of set them to like 10-1. He's not really a finisher.
Yeah.
My biggest concern with Linus is that from that Gabe Green fight, I was on Linus in that spot. It seemed like everybody was on Gabe Green and everyone cashed on Gabe Green. But like I felt really good about Linus in round 1. And he the cardio just fell off a complete cliff. Like I don't know. I don't
Probably
really
felt okay when he made
really trust the guy to go 15 minutes, but yeah, I'm still leaning towards Darian Weeks. I wanted to play the long round 3 prop, but yeah, the books are kind of wise to it. 10-1 is just not getting the juices flowing. I was thinking I'd get a little bit more out of it.
I hear you.
10% probability for Weeks to finish the fight in round 3. That doesn't seem too far off.
That doesn't sound so bad, if I'm being honest with you. You know,
about right, to be perfectly honest to me.
I love me a good round 3 sprinkle. I don't mind that one bit. I think, fight doesn't go the distance or the under 2.5 makes some sense, though, because if Johan's going to get it done, it's going to be early. And then if Weeks does bring the type of energy he's talking about, again, I don't think he can put the pace on Johan the way that Gabe Green did. That's just not really the way that he fights. But if he does come out swinging heavier, that opens him up to get clipped, on top of him having the chance to hurt a guy that, let's be honest, Johan just kind of fell over in that second round, man. He didn't even get tagged. Sure. He just collapsed. He had nothing left to give. So I kind of like violence here in this first fight now after everything's all said and done.
My only concern with like the violence bet is that Weeks, he's outside of like a doctor's stoppage when he was an amateur in 2018, hasn't been finished. And like he took on Ian Gary, he took on Brian Barberina. I think this guy's pretty durable. So I like the weak side, even though the size is a disparity, but it's more of a fight I think I'm going to just watch live and hopefully, Linus gets out to a hot start. We see, potential for him to fall off of a cliff and then jump on the weak side. That's where my mind's at right now.
Hey, if I can get a plus 175 or something after round 1, if Weeks just barely survives a nuking, I'm all about that. Live bet doesn't sound half bad on this one.
Yeah.
All right, man. So next fight up, we've got the one we talked about ever so briefly before. Melissa Martinez, Elise Reed, 113.5 for Martinez, coming in super light. Elise Reed, 115.5. These two kept their distance at the face-offs. It was respectful. I think a slight height advantage for Martinez. Man, this is one where I've been tempted on the Reed side basically all week. I don't think she's as bad as people give her the rub for. The only thing that's really worrying me, and the reason I'm probably just going to pass on this fight, is that Martinez has been off for so long, and she's that age bracket where people can make massive leaps in skill and talent, and we haven't seen her. There's no tape for 2-3 years. She could come out and be a wrestler capable of putting Reed on her back the same way everybody else has and just maul her straight to a win. I don't want to trust either of these ladies. This is absolutely a sit back and take some notes type of fight for me.
Yeah, I was considering a dog shot on Reed here, and then Cody filled me in on Dogger Pass podcast, which can be found Wednesdays on the Mayo Media Network around 7-8 p.m. It's when it gets uploaded, but that's besides the point. I was kind of like, what has this girl been doing since 2019? Like I watched her fight against Yanez on the on the regional scene there, and it wasn't very impressive. There's a lot of like standing cage control. She didn't look like a great grappler. She was able to had a decent, I suppose, get up game, but like the Yanez girl hasn't really done well since that fight either. So it's like I didn't really think too highly of her, but I guess that she's been doing a bunch of kickboxing on the side, which in a matchup against Elise Reed is just like, well, Reed can't exploit the one thing that this girl is seemingly good at. So unless this number gets completely out of hand, like a massive charge, I guess it's like minus, like almost plus 150 on Reed right now. I don't know. If there's, I highly doubt it, but if there's some sort of like crazy steam on Martinez by fight time tomorrow, maybe I jump in on Reed. Like, I think it'll be relatively competitive on the feet, but not a fight that like I really want to put any money into either. It's a pass for me.
I hear you. I'm going to pass. I'm going to take notes. Another one where I wouldn't mind jumping in live or something like that. Word on the street is Elise Reed has been working on her wrestling. So, maybe she's the one that goes ahead and forces the grappling in this situation. You never know. It's going to be a weird one, but dog or pass. Next up, Alatang Haley taking on Chad and Hellinger. And Hellinger needed the half pound, 135 for Alatang on the dot. And my guy, Alatang Haley, looks jacked, Paul. This guy put some work in. He went down to Neuroforce 1. My guy's over at Fight Ready. Got this man ready to go. You know, he's a bit bigger than Chad and Hellinger, and I totally understand. There's a lot of people out there taking the dog shot on Chad. It's favored or pass for me. I'm tempted on the Alatang Haley side. The one thing I'm a little worried about is his lack of volume, right? He just doesn't have that much output. He's stronger. He's bigger. He hits harder. He's a better wrestler. Like, he checks every single box down the line for me, except he doesn't throw as much as Chad and Hellinger does. So I think I'm an Alatang Haley guy this week. The only worry for me is I don't want to lay minus 170 go into like a greasy split because he just doesn't have the output, and Chad, you know, beats him 3-1 on the punches, but gets taken down a couple times. And what do the judges favor this week? Are they looking for wrestling? Are they looking for striking? Like, what do we like? I don't know. So it's favored or pass for me. Did you have a feel on this one?
Yeah, I'm leaning towards Alatang Haley as well. Don't necessarily love it. Like, Chad and Hellinger, biggest issue with him. Oh, thank you, Gabby. The biggest thing with him is that, I mean, he had an absolute firecracker, like a matchup that should have been like in the bag for him against Jesse Strader. It's like one of the worst guys on the UFC roster. He was taken down 4 times by Aaron Carter's boxing coach. That's never a good look. Like, I don't know. I see some love on the underdog here, but it's another spot where I'm fading Canada. Sorry to my the people at home here, but
he's older.
Haven't bet it yet, but Alatang Haley is under deep consideration right now for me.
Yeah. We find each other in the same boat there on that one, Paul. Next up, Norma Dumont and Diane Wolf. Holy crap. Both women made 146. Both women required the box of shame, the soon-to-be branded diehard MMA box of shame. If my guy Gianni comes in strong for me, I hit him up on Twitter. I was like, hey, let me know if you know who I can talk to advertise and get my logo up there on the box of shame. We'll see if he comes through strong for me or not. Dude, Wolf is massive. Like, I swear she was in the Super Soldier program because she is so much bigger. You call her Big Norm. She is Little Norm this week.
Oh, yeah.
I've been looking at the under 2.5 on this fight basically all week and just kind of staring at it. I think that's the part that I like best, or that's the angle I like best on this fight, because if Wolf is that much better of a striker and cracks her on the feet, why can't she finish Norma Dumont? If Norma Dumont manages to get this gigantor of a woman down on the mat, she's going to have a massive grappling advantage, and we've seen the mistakes that she makes going down. And on top of that, even if she does go down and make a mistake, she jumps the ghillie, Paul. She's roided to all hell, and she's got that squeeze on her. Like, both these women can finish pretty much any way they want to. I, again, just kind of like violence in this spot. I don't hate anybody saying that they're going to take a stab on the bigger, taller, longer, jab your face off, rangy striker. I honestly don't. That doesn't bother me one bit if you want to take that angle. Problem for me is she's old. She's 40 years old. You can't really expect her to develop that much better in her MMA skill set by now. So it all comes down to Norma. If Norma plays this thing stupid and lets her jab and run for 15 minutes, she deserves to lose that fight, but I think she should just kind of murk this woman on the ground if she's at all intelligent.
Yeah, I mean, if you know, like that GIF on Twitter of like the dog, and then there's like flashbacks to the dog. Yeah, the dog,
the PTSD dog,
like Vietnam or whatever, like that type of thing. Like, if you lay that type of chalk with Big Norm this week, after she just made 146 pounds, which is like, I mean, it just kind of, the legend of Big Norm kind of grows. But if you lay that type of chalk and she gets knocked out, and it's a repeat of the Megan Anderson knockout where she took an actual featherweight who was way taller, way rangier, and had the slicker striking, I mean, you're asking for trouble laying that type of price. My biggest problem with Big Norm is like she's not really a wrestler. She's got a couple submission wins on her record. It's like against like people with 0 wins early on in her career. So if this is a stand-up matchup, I still think she probably wins. But I mean, and that's mostly because against Tanisha Tennant, like Danielle Wolf was supposed to have all of the advantages, and she was able to land some jabs and stuff, but she got outstruck like 85-50.
And she got hurt,
most
Paul.
people thought that she should have lost that fight, and then she still somehow gets a contract. It's a very weird situation with her. Like, she must know where some, like Sam Alvey, she must know where some of the bodies are buried, or at least Sam told her where the bodies are buried. Because I don't really understand why they signed her to the UFC.
Yeah.
I mean, the easiest path would be Norm takes her down, finds a submission, but Norm's wrestling hasn't really proven to be all that much. I think she has one takedown in the UFC. This would be the matchup to put that to good use. Don't get me wrong. And lower center of gravity. Girl's got thick hips. Like, if she gets down there, she should be able to hold her down, just like sheer mass and that type of thing. But I mean, if you're Danielle Wolf, ever since that Tanisha Tennant fight, you're probably just working on sprawl training. I wouldn't be surprised to see Wolf win this fight at range, to be perfectly honest. Just jab away and win a real greasy decision. I don't know what to think about it, but I think it is dog or pass, but for me, it's pass.
I think it's dog or pass money line, but I think it's violence or pass from the total, and that's I'll take that stab on the under at that number, man, because if Norm just wakes up even a little bit at some point in this fight and decides to make it ugly, either one of these women have a chance to put the other one out. So we'll see what happens. Like I said, this is part of the reason why I haven't made a bet yet this week, Paul, is every single one of these fights we're like, it's just tough. This is a rough card. It's going to be fun to watch, but it's hard to find a spot value betting. Speaking of which, Chris Barnett taking on Jake Collier. Oh boy, Barnett misses weight. He breaks the 265-pound limit, comes in at 267.5. Collier did make 265, and my poor guy, Chris Barnett, I mean, he barely made it to the UFC in the first place. Not really UFC caliber. His poor wife died. They had to pull the plug before his last fight. He's doing the single dad thing now, and that explains maybe why he didn't have a good weight cut and missed weight for the weigh-ins here this week. I'm rooting for that man with my entire chest, Paul, but I'm starting to think that maybe we just take Jake Collier inside the distance because he looked big, he looked physical, and we know Jake Collier can take people down. He can submit them. He can chip at the legs. He hits pretty damn hard. With my guy Chris Barnett coming in overweight like that, I can't think his cardio is on point. I have no reason to believe that he's in his best form. And if he's not in his best form, I mean, I want to root for him, but I like money too. So Jake Collier probably kills him on Saturday. I don't know, man. Yeah,
Jake Collier, I mean, we give him a hard time. And of course he did blow up over a couple of years away from the sport. All of a sudden he showed up and he was a totally different person. But yes, he did fight at middleweight, but it's he spent most of his time at 205. He was incredibly big for 185 when he fought there early in his career. And yeah, he's 6'3". He's a big frame. So it's is he obtuse? Is he large? Is he got a little cushion for the pushing? I suppose so, but Chris Barnett is on a whole different level. It's 5'9", 267.5 pounds today. I mean, frankly, he was looking for the door against Martin Buday last time out. Collier by sub, it can be had for plus 700 out there right now. I feel don't play with your food. Don't be silly. Take this guy down and do what you did last time out, which is, or 2 fights ago, sorry, when Arlovsky was the last time out where he lost a split decision, which he probably actually won. Most people scored it. I did too. I got burned on that one. But yeah, do what you did against Chase Sherman. Take this guy down. Don't allow him to throw a spinning wheel kick or anything crazy. If he doesn't take him down, I still think he wins on volume and all that good stuff, but yeah, Collier inside the distance can be had for plus money still. And Collier by sub plus 700, I think is a half decent look.
Paul, that's the move, man. That is the move. And I'm glad you said it because I was going to mention it. Heading over to Superbook Sports, they got Jake Collier by submission 6-1, baby, plus 600. And I think inside the distance makes a ton of sense. But what we've seen from this man, he's Jake Collier is kind of a death by 1,000 cuts. He's almost a Tony Ferguson type up at heavyweight. Lots of volume, lots and lots of volume. Not the one hitter quitter thing. But what we see with these big guys, the gas tank runs dry. They're just willing to tap. If he at some point gets clipped and falls over, it's not going to be immediately over. He could get jumped on. Maybe the ground and pound comes. But why can't Collier just grab a neck? Why can't he just grab an arm? Like, it's on the table. I think inside the distance, sprinkle the 6-1 sub. That makes a ton of sense to me. And I don't mind that whatsoever here in this fight. I love that call, Paul.
Thank you, sir.
I love it.
But I'm going to add it.
I'm with you. I said on Monday that I was just going to root for Barnett and stay off this fight, but like, I think I've got to play Collier inside the distance, at least for a little, because that's just the most likely thing that's going to happen, and we're getting a good number on it.
Totally.
All right. Next up, a fight that I've gone back and forth all week. Paul, Jamie Pickett, Dennis Tuliulian, 185.5 for Pickett, 186 for Tuliulian. These guys size up extremely well. This was a respectful face-off, and Jamie Pickett, my guy, is built, Paul. He's in great shape. This is another one where it reminds me a whole lot of Lioness versus Darian Weeks. You've got Jamie Pickett talking about coming out the way we saw him on the Contender Series. He really wants to get out there and get back to his finishing ways. He talked about putting himself in danger, and he's taken on the right guy to do that. Dennis is a guy that comes out, looks for the kill, heavy hands, 1-2 down the pipe. Like, if we've got a violent mindset for Jamie Pickett and not the Neil Magny body lock against the cage mindset, this could be a banger. This is another fight that I went from looking at maybe over or pass to being under or pass. Like, I might just look violence one more time. This entire card, Paul, like, it's so scrappy. It's so low level. These people all have holes. Violence. I think I'm just going to bet unders if I bet anything all the way down this card. I do think that if Pickett played it smart, if he wanted to grind the clock, he could maybe grind the gas tank of Dennis and drag him deep and win that way. But I also think it would be close and hairy. And the way Dennis punches, again, maybe the judges favor the 1-2 over the 2 minutes of cage control. You never know. But if both guys are coming out to party, we could definitely get an under here. We've seen both guys hurt. We've seen both guys finished. Why the hell not? What do you think?
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. And like, Pickett used to be a guy that I was kind of scared of, like those violent props or violence props, because he seemed to be, outside of submissions, like the chin seemed to be pretty good from him. But taking the knees, getting finished by Jordan Wright, that didn't help the cause. Tuliulian in the fight against Chimaev, he looked okay, considering, I think Chimaev is actually going to be a pretty solid prospect in the division. Held his own on the feet. Obviously,
good
got
brawl on him too
twice. But I've seen a lot of people talking about Pickett's going to utilize his wrestling here. It's I don't really know if that's going to work. Tuliulian is one of Sean Strickland's main sparring partners. They're putting in time all the time at that gym. I think he's probably got multiple looks in the gym that'll get him ready for this. I think this ends up being a stand-up war, and I think I'm on board. What's the price on that? I didn't really consider it, but yeah, doesn't go to decision is basically a straight pick 'em right now.
Yeah, under 2.5 plus
the unders
110
to be had for the unders are into the pluses, so that's probably my preferred look on this. One of these guys gets toasted.
Yeah, I mean, something kind of tells me that you're right. I mean, working over there with guys like the Action Man, we know he knows how to sprawl and brawl. If his hips are that good and his gas tank is a little better, not coming in here on short notice, I don't see why he can't force this thing into a standing fight, and then it's just going to be a banger. Either he's going to catch Pickett and Pickett will crumble. The way we've seen him react from some of these punches is not great. Or if he slows down and gasses out, if Pickett, like I said, if he's looking for violence, I don't see why he can't finish a guy that is completely gassed out and then start to work his ground game, maybe get some ground and pound off. Or Pickett hits pretty hard, man. When he lets go, he hits hard. It's just a matter of him actually pulling that trigger. So I'm glad we're kind of on the same page there. I think I'm looking violence there. Next up, Jail 10 Almeida taking on Anton Turjackal. I still don't know how to say that guy's last name.
I think it's Turkali.
Yeah, Turkali. There we go.
That's how I've been saying it.
I think you're right. 220-pound catch weight. Both guys came in way under the catch weight, 216 and 214. Nobody needed the 220 pounds. Anton is bigger than Jailton, Paul. when they face off, I was a little surprised to see how friggin' big Anton is. This is a fight where, once again, I want nothing to do with the fan favorite minus 265 Jailton. You'd think the guy would just kind of rip this dude to the ground the way he does everybody else, but that's kind of Anton's path to victory. This guy likes to wrestle people as well. So if he's just as big, maybe can match him physically, we could be looking at a sloppy striking match. Maybe we get a lot of cage control. I don't know. I'm not parlaying Jailton at these odds. I never do that. I don't know what it is, Paul. I'm not a hater, but I'm definitely not a believer. Like, I know Jailton has looked fantastic and everyone's ready to crown him champion. I'm not there yet. So if anything, honestly, I'd be looking at a little cheeky over 1.5 plus 140 for Anton to just survive. Get me to the second round, kid. That'd be kind of the way I'd be looking at this thing. I don't think this fight's going to go quite the way everyone believes it will, but I guess we'll find out. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, Jailton looks pretty darn good in the spots that he's been in. Like, being able to absolutely rip down Parker Porter, a 265-pound man, and just absolutely dominate him like that was pretty impressive. I mean, the guy's wrestling seems to be on point. If someone could stop his wrestling, though, that's where I think things could get a little bit dicey. Anton may have the solution for that. Like, Anton is a wrestler in his own right. You know, puts in lots of time on that.
Yep.
Obviously, it's Contender Series fight. He had like 11 takedowns. Jailton went to decision against the same guy that Anton took down in a grappling match. He went to won a decision in escape time, whatever that means. That Submission Circus 5.
So that's a grappling match.
My initial thought was like, oh, Jailton's absolutely going to murder this guy. But like, the more I think about it and the more I look at the odds, like, one, no, I never play minus 700s with anything. So like, that was kind of thrown out the window immediately.
Mm-hmm.
And then even the Almeida props, like, do I really think he's going to win by submission so much that I would pay like minus 30, minus 130? No, not really. I don't mind the over 1.5, I suppose. If you want to get really, really greasy, you go fight goes to decisions. Like, you know, Turkali in his Contender Series fight looked very content to, you know, fight to the final bell, even though he's on a show that typically you get a job from finishing fights, but like, he seemed very content to continue to get the takedowns, ride top control, take the guy down again. Like, wasn't really fishing hard, trying to search for a finish. So if this got dragged out to decision and we see a little bit more from Jailton, I wouldn't be shocked. And I see that at like plus 300 out there. So, I mean, if I was, gun to my head now, as I've thought about it over the course of the week, watch the weigh-in, see that Anton isn't exactly outsized whatsoever. Plus 300 to go to decision doesn't seem crazy. Anton's never been finished. He's 8-0.
Hear me out, Paul. Hear me out. We go over 1.5 at plus 140. We go over 2.5 for plus 240. We go fight goes the distance at plus 300. And then you just sprinkle. You just ever so baby sprinkle Turkali by split decision at 35-1. 35-1, Paul.
You're sick, but I don't hate it. If you want to, gamble responsibly,
of course,
because it totally could go. Jailton could just absolutely go out there and smash them. But I don't know. Yeah, it's a weird matchup. The more I think about it this week, like, I don't think it's it. Jailton is a 205er that just seems happy to take more fights, get more paychecks, get through those contracts a little bit faster.
Yep.
And fight at catchweights or fight heavyweights instead of having to do 3-month training camps, have to grind his body down to get to 205. When this guy actually goes for a title run, I don't expect him to do that title run or try to go for a title run at 200 and at heavyweight whatsoever. I expect him to try to do it at 205. And he may have a shot. Like, I mean, we'll learn more about him this weekend, but I'm not ready to coronate him either. Like, I'm not ready to put the crown on him either. Like, I've seen people saying that he's going to beat Ankalaev. It's just like, I don't know about that, bro. Like, beating Parker Porter Like
What is that really?
Like the Parker Porter win just kind of shows you how bad the bottom of heavyweight is, more than how
It's
good.
like Randy Couture, man. He just was like, heavyweight's weak. I'm stepping up there. I'm taking the belt. Like, that's what it is right now for that first, rank 30 through 15 in the heavyweight division. There's nobody there. So, yeah, I don't think that says a whole lot about Jailton. Don't get me wrong. The kid is good. Don't get me wrong. He's good. But I think Anton might be better than people are giving him credit for. We'll see what happens. Maybe I just play the over like I'm talking about. I don't think that's a half bad look. And you know what, Paul? I forgot to mention one more tinfoil hat idea that I had leading up to this thing. Bounce back real quick here to our ladies fight, Norma Dumont and Danielle Wolf. I'm playing just a little sprinkle on the point deduction prop, Paul. Because if you go back and it's 20-1. And if you watch the Contender Series fight, she's a boxer. She still doesn't know about the fingers in the gloves. She got warned like 6 times for eye pokes against a fighter nobody cared about. Now let's see her on a pay-per-view on the big show against a known fighter. They might be a little bit quicker on the trigger.
Now we're going to try to grapple.
And then, of course, if we get grappling, why won't there be cage grabs? I think she grabbed the fence on the Contender Series once and got away from it. They didn't even warn her when she was like straight up, like fingers through the fencing. I'm telling you, man, that's one I'm going to take. Just a little taste, just a little sprinkle, gamble responsibly.
I don't have access to Superbook Sports up here in the Great White North, but that is something I like, those types of greasy plays like that.
So all the lines that I give Paul on this show are from Superbook Sports. Don't tell anybody the split decisions and the point grabs are only at DraftKings.
Oh, my bad.
You're
Either
good.
Way, yeah, those
what?
are very, very interesting.
I
wish I had access to those props, but I don't. I mean, most of Canada has been getting legalized recently. Like where the province I used to live in, which is Ontario, has been legalized. So they've got like the full smorgasbord of everything right now. We're still out in the dark ages here. Like I've lost more books than I've gained, even though it's legal here. We get everything. We got like the COVID vaccine that showed up, 3-4 months after everybody else had already gotten it. Like East Coast of Canada is like the forgotten land. They just like, they'll be fine out there.
I hate to hear you guys
that'll keep them healthy.
I hate to hear you're getting abused on the sportsbook side of things. I'm spoiled here in Arizona. We got it all, man. They legalized it and they were like, everybody. We're all set. All right. So let's move along, man. We still got a couple fights to get to. We're taking our good sweet time here. Hakeem Dawodu taking on Julian Juicy J Erosa. Another freaking weight miss, man. Hakeem, a guy that we've never really seen have any issues, came in at 149.5. I know he's a big dude. I know he's muscly, but he's also never really missed weight that I can recall. Julian Erosa, 146, no problem. When they face up, Julian's a big guy, man. He is tall. He's like way taller than Hakeem Dawodu is. Classic cold, emotionless, mean Hakeem. This is a spot where I leaned dog or pass. I've been trying to catch, Hakeem and his suspect chin for a long time, Paul. And I thought maybe Juicy J is the guy to do it. And then I'm like, Clint, just quit. Like, Hakeem is such a better striker. Don't get fancy with it. Don't talk yourself into an underdog because, yes, maybe Juicy J blasts him with something big, but more than likely, Hakeem picks him apart and chips away at him, chops the legs. And when Juicy J goes for broke, Hakeem probably finishes him. So, again, I'm kind of looking violence. I think Juicy J could finish the fight if he lands the right way. We know he's got the submission upside. If Hakeem clips this guy coming in wild, he can end the fight. He's been a decisionator in the UFC, but I don't see why he can't finish a guy with a suspect chin. And now with the weight differential, Paul, I think that helps it because either Hakeem is in some way impaired, had a bad weight cut, had an injury, couldn't do the road work, like something, and one of two options. Either he's heavier and he's going to hit harder, or he's heavy for a reason because he's injured, and now we've got Julian Erosa with even more of a chance to kill a wounded animal. So I think this favors the under with this weight miss personally. I still kind of think Hakeem probably gets it done, but at the end of the day, if you told me right now, Paul, that you pulled out your sports almanac from the week past and say that Juicy J wins this thing by second round club and sub, I'd be like, okay, I can see it.
Yeah, I played the under 2.5 rounds at plus 120 already earlier this week.
Oh, it's even money now.
Yeah, there's it's basically even money now. So I
Dragging my feet.
slightly beat the number, but like I feel like the numbers that they opened at kind of speak more to Dawodu being a decision machine rather than than Juicy J. Of course, it's coming off of the decision win against Steve Ocho Peterson, but he got hit 148 times in that fight. 148 times in that fight. Incredibly hittable. And then the other time that he went to decision in the UFC was against Grant Dawson. He got taken down 6 times. He's a pretty good grappler in his own right. And he just got basically controlled, neutralized while he was down there. So it's like, Hakeem is a decision machine typically, but Juicy J brings a certain fire to the fight that I feel like no fight of his should be 50-50 to go to decision. I jumped in on that plus 120 earlier in the week. I still think at like plus 100, it's a very good spot. Like this could be either where, and the weigh-in miss obviously today made me feel even better about it. It's like, okay, well, something's up with Dawodu. He's not on his best. So like that increases the chance of Erosa finding a finish. Is Erosa, if he wins, but more likely to win by finish? Yes. Like the scariest outcome, I suppose, is Dawodu just chips away on the outside, doesn't let himself get into any sort of firefight whatsoever. But I feel like Erosa, even in that situation, is going to run.
Is Erosa going to ever accept that, Paul? Like, that's my thing. Julian Erosa gives himself a chance to win. If he's down 2 rounds and they know that, he's going for broke. He's not going to shell up and just be like, I'll let this guy kick me for 5 more minutes. That's not how Juicy J fights. Like, I kind of think he'll force a finish one way or the other.
Oh, yeah. Violence is 100% the play in that fight.
Right.
It is
it's
priced as though it's priced factoring way too much of the Dawodu side rather than Erosa being a shit-eating wild man. Like that's essentially the situation.
Agreed. And you made the right move, Paul. You beat me to it. I should have pulled the trigger. I talked about this one on Monday, and I just got a weird heebie-jeebies feeling this week, which turned out to be relatively accurate. But I haven't bet anything. I missed out on some line value for that one. I think I'm probably going to jump in on that. Speaking of shit-eating wildmen, I own Cuțelaba and Johnny Walker. Paul, Ione needed the half pound, but Johnny Walker made 205 on the dot. We got the classic shirt rip from Ione, and I wish I could have just like busted that out for everybody. Actually been able to like shred the shirt. That would have impressed some people. Should have worked out this week before the show. Decent height advantage for Johnny Walker. I talked about this one, man. I believe, Paul, that your guy Cody is the only person joining me on the island for drinks this week. I don't understand how anybody can trust or lay minus 200 on Ione Cuțelaba. It baffles me. Like, I understand Johnny Walker's chin issue. I know chin issue. But outside of chin issue, he's not missing anything. He's got good, solid takedown defense. He's taller. He's longer. He's a finisher. He can knock people out. Believe it or not, he's threatened multiple guillotine chokes, which is something we've seen Ione fall for several times. And Cuțelaba just finds a way to sell fights down the river. It's what he does every single time. So this is a dog or pass spot for me. And I think I'm going to pull the trigger. I think I'm going to bite on Johnny Walker. I don't see why he can't finish this thing. And like I said, don't be shocked if he hits a guillotine. Johnny Walker by sub. I don't think I'm actually going to bet it, but like on Superbook Sports, you got 15-1 Walker by sub. And it's just one of those spots where it's like, why not? Ione puts his neck in guillotines every time he's tired. Johnny doesn't want to get punched in the face. I think he's going to use the big cage, stay at range, and then if he gets taken down, he's going to stick this man like glue, so there's going to be no opportunity to get binked in the forehead again.
Yeah, honestly, it's not the craziest thing. And like when Ione loses, he loses spectacularly. Like
it's fantastic.
He either gets finished in the first round, whether it's a submission or a knockout, or he expends all of his energy in the first like 7.5 minutes of the fights going for, low probability takedowns. Like he's so strong and like he's very muscular and he's got decent technique. Don't get me wrong, but it's like he forces a lot of these takedowns, and like against a big frame like Johnny Walker, like I don't doubt that he's going to take Walker down a couple times early, but unless he lands like the perfect shot on the button, and like I hated what they've done to Johnny Walker. I understand why they did it, like against Thiago Santos, like fighting a little bit, using your strengths, using that reach, fighting at range. It made for a really boring fight, but like that's
it should have worked.
Skills are, and if
he just threw 2 more leg kicks, Paul,
from the hill fight, I mean, if he just hangs out at range here, uses that massive reach advantage, he's got flashy striking ability. I don't know if I'm going to get to like him by submission, but yeah, tired Cuțelaba could fall into something a little bit late too. But yeah, I think it's dog or pass too. Like I'm considering Johnny Walker, but it's like my heart just won't let me, pull the trigger. It's like I don't trust either one of these guys. I know for damn sure I am not betting Ion Cuțelaba chalk ever again. I think that part of my life is done.
That's the thing. That's the thing. All the people just piling in.
Yeah. Is it like are people really betting them?
That's all I'm hearing, man. Everybody I have talked to, my guest on the show on Monday, texted a couple people, messaged a couple. Everybody's just like, bro, it's Ion in a parlay. Ion that, like, I don't know. I can't do it. I don't get it.
He just fell right into a guillotine choke against Ryan Spann last time, though.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, like, literally fell into it. He gassed himself shooting for 3 takedowns because he refused
fight is
to
where
play
like
range.
my love affair with Ion Cuțelaba fell off. It's like he had 11 takedowns, should have absolutely smashed that fight, absolutely blows his wad, and then proceeds to just let the fight away, and it goes to an absolute draw. But it's like, yeah, he's got wrestling, he's got the capability. Or sorry, he had 9 takedowns there. But it's like as that fight went along, it's like, yeah, it's all well and good that if you can, not everyone can be like Merab, where it's just like Merab can do that game plan, but he can do that for a hard 15 minutes. And that's why it works. It's like if you can only do that for 5 minutes, well, then you got to change your game plan, because once you get up the ladder in the UFC, your little tricks aren't going to work against people, and they're going to hold on and take you out late. So Johnny Walker. What's Johnny Walker like round 3? Both of them could be very gassed by the time they get there.
That's a great question. And see, personally, my gut is saying round 2, Paul, but Walker round 3 is 20-1.
I never bet round 2 props.
Round 2s are tough to call.
I don't think I've ever bet a round 2 prop. I think
the only one I think I'm 1 for 1 on round 2s, Paul. The only one I ever played was Jake Matthews round 2, and that's the one I scored.
I've done the situation where I've like bet like 2 and 3, but I've never just like flat out bet a round 2 prop. It's either round 1 or it's like round 3, or if it's like a 5-round fight, it's like rounds 4,
like 3, 4, 5, that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah,
I hear you.
Johnny Walker for me, I think it's dog or pass pretty clearly.
All right, I'm with you, man. Johnny Walker, let's go. Get it back on track, Johnny. Let's go, baby. Irene Aldana, Macy Chiasson coming up here. This fight was our last second notice move to 140. We all knew Macy Chiasson was full of shit and she wasn't going to make 135 pounds. Irene Aldana got the phone call. She was about to make 136 and went, oh, thank God, I don't have to finish the cut. She agreed to the 140 catch weight. Macy came in at 139.5. Irene made 137.5. Macy had a decent size advantage here, Paul. This one, I've been bouncing back and forth all week, man. I think Irene Aldana is the side. I like her footwork. I like her boxing. I like the power she brings to the table. That's all well and good. Macy Chiasson, on the other hand, though, she brings the exact style that has beaten Irene Aldana 2 or 3 times already. If you can mix it up at range and then get in close, body locker, pin her against the fence, she just falls apart with that. She second guesses her punches. She slows down. She plays defensively. She just seems to fall apart anytime someone brings that style to her. And I think that Macy Chiasson having success with that against Norma Dumont last time, that's exactly what she's going to do. I've got confirmed sharp action over at Superbook Sports on Macy Chiasson, and that line is dropping. She's a plus 145 underdog over there now. You can get Irene Aldana at minus 165. It was a favorite or pass spot for me, Paul, but honestly, that's enough to keep me off. I would be looking more at like a Macy Chiasson by decision type of prop. I didn't hate the Irene Aldana by knockout. You could get that at like plus 400, plus 450 earlier in the week. And that's the kind of spot where I don't see why she can't bludgeon a tired Macy Chiasson if she works the body and gets at her late in the fight. But at the same time, we just saw Macy do this for 15 minutes. Now she's got a weight advantage calling in last second like that to come in heavy on her smaller opponent. Like, this all just sets up too nicely for the weight bully to get away with cheating a little bit too much here for me.
So yeah, I bet Irene Aldana like really early. It's fun. Yeah, it opened at like minus 155 or so. And I got it at minus 161. It got up to like minus 205. And then money started piling back in. I expected this to go to like 70-30, which would be like minus 233.
I kind of thought it would too.
I thought it was going to go to that direction. So that's why I hopped in early. I don't always hop in early unless I think there's going to be a significant line move. And to quote like Stephen A. Smith, I feel like I've been hoodwinked, bamboozled, led astray, run amok, and flat out deceived because I did not sign up for 145 or 140 pound catch weight in this spot. Now
changes
we're giving
things.
Macy an extra 5 pounds. Now we're giving like part of my mentality here is Macy Chiasson even at like 145, even in that last fight. It's like round 3, she started to slow down quite a bit. All right, let's strip 10 pounds off of her. Even if she's able to weight bully in round 1, I feel like as long as Irene Aldana is able to survive, round 3, we should absolutely torch her. So, like, I feel like I kind of hate it now because it's like, no, like her having to cut all the way down to get to that 136 limit was part of my strategy. And I suppose
that was the game plan.
That's why you got to watch the weigh-ins. And just like, yeah, but my original mentality is that this is going to go off at minus 233 or minus 230-ish, then, I would rather get the minus 160, take the risk. And, I suppose I've learned my lesson. I still think that Irene Aldana should win this fight at range. I am a little bit more scared because of, the change in the weight. I don't think it's very remotely competitive on the feet between the two of them. And I know Chiasson did have 6 takedowns last time out against Big Norm. Maybe she can do that again, and it's very possible round 1 could look very, very ugly for yours truly in this spot. But I don't really classify her as like some sort of elite wrestler still. Like I think that kind of speaks more to when we were talking about Big Norm earlier. It's just like that fight against Chiasson kind of leads you to believe it's like, I don't know if she can take down Danielle Wolf, who has 0 grappling experience whatsoever. So yeah, I'm still on Aldana. Like it, don't nearly love it like I thought I would. I thought I would be sitting here on Friday night, rubbing my hands, thinking about CLV and getting ready to cash that ticket. But like those extra 5 pounds definitely matter because I thought Macy was biting off more than she can chew going back to 135 pounds. And I was right, but she got bailed out.
She got bailed out. And that's the thing, Paul. That's where she didn't miss weight. She called in a favor and her girl agreed. So I almost got to wonder if this wasn't part of the plan all along, man. She was at the pressers talking about wishing more girls bounced back and forth between weight classes and, all that kind of stuff. She had no intention of ever making 135. I feel like Macy Chiasson is pulling a fast one here on us. And I may be biting, man. It was a spot that I was tempted on a little earlier in the week. I kind of leaned with the favorite, felt the number was maybe a little wide, but now after all this stuff, I might be buying in on Macy. I went to war with her against Big Norm last time out and cashed a dog ticket. It got sweaty, but maybe we just do it again this week.
Yeah, I won't completely. Yeah, I won't blame you, to be perfectly honest. Like I still like the Aldana side, but. Yeah, something I got a sick feeling in the pit of my stomach about it now, which I didn't expect to have.
And man, you know what? The big thing for me from like an actual like sports betting gambling perspective, the reverse line movement just screams at me here. If everybody that we know is betting on Aldana, but that line keeps closing, like the people who really know the big money out there, the real movers, they're all on the other side. And that's something that speaks volumes to me that, when the Twitter world is all on the same side and yet somehow we're still wrong, it definitely makes me rethink my position. All right, we're getting to the good stuff, folks. Everybody, if you haven't already, make sure you follow Paul on Twitter. He's a good follow. He's a fun guy. He's bringing all the Gianni memes you could ever want on Twitter. It's good stuff. Make sure you check out the Mayo Media Network and the Dog or Pass podcast. Subscribe here to Pub Sports if you haven't already. D-Rod taking on the Leech. We've got Daniel Rodriguez coming in at 179 because he had a 180-pound catch weight, Paul, and the Leech made the 170-pound limit. So we've got a 10-pound weight advantage for Daniel Rodriguez. Talk about being a gangster. The Leech, no problem. I'll take the fight. Like, no hesitation, no issues. When these guys sized up, honestly, he looks like he's in phenomenal shape, Paul. The Leech looked like he is ready to go for this fight. These two actually size up really well. Obviously, D-Rod's going to be a little more filled out. He did look a little wider, like in the shoulders and back, but these guys size up pretty solidly. This is a fun fight, Paul. I like this matchup. I worry about the... What was that?
I cut you off. Yeah, it is a fun fight. D-Rod, it's not exactly like he was, like, he just didn't cut weight. So it's like when they were squared off against each other, it's like they're pretty much the same size. It's just like D-Rod isn't as cut as usual because usually he's cutting to 170 and there's like that extra 10 pounds of fat that he's not carrying into it. So they're around the same size, but it's like I liked D-Rod against Kevin Holland. I was going to bet that spot at plus 170. I still like him here because I think it just kind of comes down to volume. I think they're both pretty competitive on the feet. D-Rod's got a really good chin. And I feel like over the course of 15 minutes, D-Rod will outvolume the Leech. Obviously, I haven't like dug into tape and we didn't really have time to do all that jazz today. But I parlayed the Leech with Chimaev. We'll talk about that fight in a second.
Okay.
Yeah, I got that at plus 116 up here in Canada. I just kind of saw some of the numbers moving away and figured, I didn't expect to bet Chimaev this week because he was like over a 10-1 favorite. And
all of a sudden he's playable.
all of a sudden he was like minus 450. And I was like, all right, I think D-Rod probably, edges this out on the scorecard, but I would not be shocked to see the Leech pull this one out. I think the weight disparity there, like it may help D-Rod a bit. Like he didn't have to drain himself. So round 3, his cardio should be in theory better, but hey, maybe he wasn't even training for a fight leading up to this. The fight was only booked with Holland 2 weeks ago. So I wouldn't be shocked to see D-Rod lose this fight. Don't get me wrong. Like this is not some sort of lock, but I had to add a little bit of action because Tony Ferguson plus 266 fell off of my card. And before these lines moved, I wanted to get in on it. So yeah, Chimaev and D-Rod are on a parlay for me.
I hear you, man. I need to go back and do some serious work on this one because I guess initial lean for me. Now, again, folks, we're talking Superbook Sports. This line is Daniel Rodriguez minus 150. The Leech comes back at plus 130. I think I kind of lean dog or pass, and I really need to put some tape study behind that thought process. I need to spend more time on D-Rod, Paul. He's a guy that's really caused me problems for a while. I don't know what it is, but I have never rated D-Rod all that well. I think back to like the Dwight Grant fight, and I think I bet Dwight Grant that night. I don't think highly of Dwight Grant. And the way he clipped D-Rod early in that fight and had him on skates and then fell off and died afterward, I don't see why the Leech can't do something very, very similar. D-Rod's a guy that'll stand in front of you, put the volume on display, and relies on his chin and durability to get through it. And that might be a bad game plan versus the Leech. He's coming off of, 4 straight finish wins over guys that are all known for their durability. Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos, Santiago Ponzinibbio, Muslim Salikov. And then there's the fact, as you mentioned, that D-Rod may not have really been training all that much for this fight. Short notice, fill in. So maybe he just kind of stayed in shape, had a catch weight, but wasn't really ready to go. The Nicholas Dalby fight, Paul, that's the one. I think I'm a jaded lover. I'm a jilted lover in this spot because I parlayed the crap out of D-Rod the night he fought Nicholas Dalby. Because if there's anybody I think worse of in this division than Derek Rodriguez, it's Dalby. I do not believe in this man. I don't think he's caliber. And I thought D-Rod was going to smoke him. And he just looked so awful that night. Since then, he's beat Mike Perry, no longer with the promotion. Preston Parsons, who knows where the hell that guy is. He's coming off a win, I guess. Kevin Lee, no longer with the promotion. So, like, I don't know. I just don't know what to make of D-Rod. I need to do more homework if I'm just going to sell it to you straight. I need to do more homework. But my initial lean is still kind of picking up the dog money on the Leech here, I think.
All right. No, I've always been a D-Rod guy. He's maybe like I bet him a whole bunch. I
know so many people.
The Dalby fight was kind of ugly. Like he won, but it was like very, very boring, and he just didn't like put any oomph, I suppose, into that fight. He just kind of went through the motions. But what I like about him is, the guy can clear like 120, 130 significant strikes over the course of 15 minutes. He's done that multiple times. And his chin holds up. So I think he kind of just edges this fight out, wins a relatively close decision against the Leech.
Maybe
hopefully not so close because I bet it, but like that's kind of how I see this fight going 15 minutes. What's the price on that? Have they even dropped props on that?
It does look like the total 2.5 overs minus 140.
Yeah, that makes sense. Over 2.5 is actually probably decent value based on where the line is going, to be perfectly honest. So if you want to,
I don't mind that so much.
That Superbook Sports, it's going to move. I already see it like minus 155, minus 160 in other spots right now. So.
Oh shit. Okay. Yeah. Well, if you like that over, maybe jump on it sooner than later. So co-main event now, Paul. The big one, Khamzat Chimaev taking on Kevin Holland. These guys had some serious beef backstage. Kevin Holland calling Khamzat a fake gangster, calling him out for fist bumping when, he's not keeping that same energy after he gets out on stage and tries to rile everybody up. Chimaev came in at 178.5, missing weight by a good solid 8 pounds today. Kevin Holland, 179.5, which, like you said, just all too conveniently lined up. He had a 180-pound catch weight. Kevin Holland stuck to his guns, demanded a 5-round co-main event fight. He said he's not signing on the dotted line unless he gets 5 rounds. And he pulled it off, Paul. They caved. They gave him the 5-round fight. These guys size up pretty damn well. Khamzat Chimaev going nuts at the face-offs. He's maybe a little bit thicker than our guy Kevin Holland is, but that's not surprising. He's always been kind of a string beanie type of dude. Real quick, guys, Superbook Sports does the knockout prop where if you bet on the main event of a fight card, you get a $10 or a $20 bonus depending on the sizing of your bet for every knockout that happens on the entire fight night. They've decided to extend that to the co-main event for this fight because the main event got split in half. So now if you put a bet on the main event money line or co-main event money line, you're eligible for the knockout bonuses for the night. Just need you all to know that because it's an awesome prop. You just cheer for violence on fights you have not bet on. Paul, am I crazy to think that the 5 rounds favors Kevin Holland here? Like, after what we saw on the Burns fight and everything like that with Khamzat slowing down in a 15-minute war, am I crazy to think that Kevin Holland knew what he was doing when he asked for 5 rounds?
I think it does help Kevin Holland out, but like he's not gonna stop the takedowns here. And that was the biggest thing with like the Gilbert Burns fight is Gilbert Burns BJJ is terrifying, and if you're not ready to go down into that danger zone, then you should avoid it altogether. And I think that's what happened. Gilbert Burns was able to like kind of subdue some of the takedowns. And I feel like it got into Khamzat's head a little bit. He's just like, do I even really want to go down there with this guy? Like, that's where I could get myself into trouble. And then they had a stand and bang war. It's just like, Kevin Holland, how many fights do we have to watch from him to know that this is a horrible matchup? Marv took him down 11 times over the course of a 5-round fight. It's like Khamzat's going to take him down at will. And outside of like a crazy, like, the knockout that he had against Jacare or something like that, I think it's a bad matchup.
Does he do the leaping hammer fist?
Khamzat was already getting ready for a 5-round fight as it is. and he was getting ready for a 5-round fight where I think the game plan was to weight bully Nate Diaz. Don't hang out and just like box with Nate Diaz in that spot. Take him down. Don't end up in a triangle, and just smash away. I don't think it really changes all that much for him. Obviously, Holland is a bigger frame. He's got a longer reach. He's obviously in better form at this point in his career as opposed to Nate Diaz, where who the hell knows where Nate Diaz is at in his training. It sounds like he basically gave up on training for this fight, or that if you believe what a Diaz brother says leading into a fight, which is like,
we'll get into that.
I don't know
here.
If you really trust everything. Like they're selling you wolf tickets. It's not about other people selling wolf tickets. They're selling you wolf tickets a lot of the time as well. But I feel like, a stand-up war like that for Khamzat, him slowing down, gassing, it's like, this guy wants to go out there and wrestle. It's like you see it with a lot of guys. It's like if he can just take you down and smash away on you, it's like he could probably do that for 5 rounds. Like that's his bread and butter. His muscles are built for that type of combat. Like if you go even back to like the Marshman fight, and now Marshman was it was the John Phillips fight. My bad. The John Phillips fight where he took him down twice, and it's like as soon as he got him down there, it's like it looks so effortless. Like, obviously, Kevin Holland is more of a threat off of his back. He's got better submissions. I feel like if he's on his back, like Holland's got to come into this fight, and this fight is the ground is hot lava for him. What is it on Superbook Sports? Because obviously people pounded it away when it opened, but over 1.5 rounds doesn't seem like a bad look.
Minus 150.
Yeah, that's good. I think that's a pretty good line. Holland has proven to be 1, durable, 2, has really good jiu-jitsu, or at least good enough defensive jiu-jitsu to hang out on his back. I think over 1.5 rounds is probably the safer play here. The best play on this fight. And I have Chimaev obviously with the D-Rod. But I may add that over 1.5 because I think I don't think Holland is a complete bum, and I think he's going to be able to fend off any submissions from Khamzat, and he's been durable over the course of his career, going 5 rounds with like legit middleweight contenders. 7.5 minutes doesn't seem too long for Kevin Holland. So it's and if there is any truth, I don't know if I completely agree or believe that, Khamzat had like a medical issue, then even better probably for that over 1.5 rounds. So I think over 1.5 rounds is the play on this.
I don't mind that. I mean, Big Mouth has been notoriously hard to put away. And like you said, he is a BJJ black belt. So I do think he's defensively solid enough on the ground, even though he just kind of lays on his back and turtles up. He shouldn't necessarily get finished straight away. He is a bigger natural man than somebody like Diaz. So I do think he's got the opportunity to survive longer in this fight. I don't mind that look, Paul. I don't mind that look. And if you're gonna be a wild man, like I know our guy John Stargarian's already talking about, if you're gonna be a wild man and take a shot on the dog here in this spot, maybe just live bet. Khamzat's already up to minus 750, plus 525 coming back on Holland. I do think Holland is more live than Diaz ever was if he's going to pull this thing off. And I do think the deeper this fight goes, testing the gas tank of Khamzat is a very good plan. So if you see that working, if Holland is losing rounds 1 and 2, but you start to see the signs of Chimaev slowing down, maybe we jump in live. I'm not going to bet this thing pre-flop, especially from a money line standpoint. People parlaying a lower price tag on Khamzat. I get it. Go for it. Have at it. I don't mind that over 1.5 look at all, Paul. I do think this fight will be not necessarily more competitive, but at least it lasts longer than I expected the other one to.
Totally agree.
All right, main event time, everybody. Tony Ferguson taking on Nate Diaz. It's finally happening, Paul. We're getting Tony versus Nate. Both guys came in at 171 pounds. I am pumped up. You were talking about not being able to believe the Diaz brothers, but Paul, we got evidence with our own eyes. You can see it. Diaz is soft. You look at his last fight with Leon Edwards. He was all kinds of chiseled up and kangarooed out. And He looks flabby coming in on stage today. I think he absolutely pulled a Nick. And when he realized what was happening, went, I'm done with this, and didn't put the work in, didn't put the effort in. I don't know that we're getting 100% Nate Diaz. Right now, Superbook Sports, and this line is crazy, by the way. From what I understand, it opened up minus 130 or minus 150, something like that. Nate Diaz plus 135 Tony. People smashed Tony Ferguson. And then it flipped where we're seeing like minus 175s for Tony Ferguson out there. Superbook now has Nate Diaz minus 115. Tony is a minus 105, ever such a slight underdog here in this spot. And from what I hear across the counter at Superbook Sports, Paul, they cannot get enough people to take the money coming in on Nate Diaz. They are shoveling money on Nate Diaz right now. It is just all they are writing, Diaz, 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 Diaz. And I was disappointed, Paul. I wanted plus 135 on Tony. And as soon as I saw the minus 175s, I thought, well, shit, they're going to make me bet Diaz. Because at plus 150 or so, why wouldn't you? But we're back down to a pick 'em. We're back down to Tony being the dog. Like, I think I'm Team Tony here, Paul.
I'm going to wait this one out because, this fight opened. Tony was like plus 135 out there. And then it dipped, and this is over the course of 4 or 5 hours. It went all the way down to minus 200 Ferguson, and now I see it's pretty much like minus 125 to minus 140 across the market right now. So I have no idea where this is going to land. I'm going to lean toward, I liked Ferguson, but when I missed those openers, I felt like I kind of missed the boat. And frankly, until you were saying that, I hadn't looked at the odds because we were breaking down all of the other fights. I thought I already missed the boat. It got to minus 200, and I'm like, well, I'm just going to have to sit back and enjoy this one. But
the boat's back, Paul.
Nate Diaz looked horrible leading into it. Didn't seem like he wanted to fight Khamzat whatsoever. All the other conspiracy stuff besides. It's like Tony knew that he was fighting 175 or 170 pound fight. Like, he showed up to this. This is the easiest matchup, really, what it comes down to. And I was already betting Tony Ferguson at plus 266 against Kevin Holland. So I don't know how I don't bet Tony Ferguson against Nate Diaz. Like, people are going to give, people say, oh, Tony's washed. It's just like, at lightweight, losing to Justin Gaethje, Charles Oliveira, Beneil Dariush, and Michael Chandler. Yeah,
that is not
it's a 4-fight losing streak, but it's like he's losing to the champion, the Bellator champion, a guy who was able, in Dariush, who was able to take him down and neutralize any sort of ground game that he had. Like, that's what him and Charles did. It's like, I'm not so convinced that, one, front kick to the face, and don't get me wrong, that was as violent as it gets. But it's like, I think Tony can still win some fights. He's not going to beat the best guys, but Nate Diaz is not the best guy. So if we're getting back close to pick him again, I'm going to end up with Ferguson in my pocket. But there's been so much volatility on this number already that I feel like I can kind of sit back and wait at this point. But Ferguson is the pick 100%. As you said, we may get plus money again because people just want to bet Nate Diaz. And people who were, too cowardly, they didn't want to do it against Khamzat. They're like, all right, now Nate's got a winnable fight. But I'm not so sure that's a winnable fight. I think he's already got one foot out the door at this point. So, it is Tony Ferguson, sounds like, for the both of us.
All right. Yeah, let's go Team Tony, man. I even tweeted it. I was like, so we're all just betting Tony Ferguson now, right? Like, honestly, I was a little surprised they opened the line where they did in the first place. Maybe anticipating the Diaz love that was going to come in, even at a more favorite chalky price tag. But I just don't see how we can get away from Tony at a pick'em price tag. Like, his volume against Chandler looked fantastic. And Nate Diaz is not going for takedowns. So we know this is going to be a stand-up fight. Nate has never been a one-punch guy. And I know he's got cardio for days. He always does. But a Nate that isn't taking the fight seriously and training hard, does he have cardio for days? I'm not so sure. It'll be interesting, man.
Nate against Jorge Masvidal, I mean, the cut was what stopped it. But that did not look like a guy who had turned up ready to fight 5 rounds. Against Leon Edwards, yes, but he came in chiseled and looked like he was like remotivated. Now he's kind
They
of
just moved it to pick him, Paul.
Move to a pick 'em?
Move to a pick 'em. It went from -105, -115 to even money, 110s both sides.
Yeah, this market is absolutely wild, and I love it. I mean, that's what we're here for. That's what the beauty of this game is crazy stuff like this and be ready to react. But yeah, I mean, if that touches plus 100, I mean, I'm going to see what happens.
When have we ever had this much fun on
Friday? At least gets to -110. Like, I'm gonna end up with some Tony Ferguson in my pocket. That's the only way to go about it, as far as I'm concerned.
You and me both, man. You and me both. And honestly, what do you think of the total? What do you think of this thing going over or under? Because they got it at 4.5. The over's -120. The under's even money. I mean, both these guys are capable of finishing, but honestly, both of them don't play to the weakness of their opponent. Both them, it's like a strength versus strength type of situation. So I almost feel like we might get 25 minutes of chaos, unless it's like a referee bloody stoppage from a cut or something like that. I don't know that either of these guys is submitting the other. I don't know that either of these guys is knocking the other one out. Like, I'm kind of feeling a decision here for a 25-minute battle in the main event. Paul, what about yourself?
Yeah, I'd be concerned about like Diaz with the cuts. Like, he's got like that. What they had, like, what was it?
The scar tissue?
Scar tissue that, like, he cuts up so easily. We saw it again. Seen it in a bunch of fights. That would be my only concern with, like, attacking this. I think all things square, I would think that this probably does go the full 5 rounds. But, like, Tony kind of hinted at that, like, he doesn't necessarily want to go 5 rounds. Like, he wasn't too keen on going 5 rounds. So maybe he doesn't trust his cardio. Coming into this camp up at 170 pounds, maybe he was like, hey, I don't have to do the crazy stuff that I do every single every single lead up to every single fight. Like Tony does like some of the most insane workouts because he didn't have to cut down to 155. Maybe he's done a little bit less of that. I still think the guy, yeah, he's got 5 rounds in his tank to go. But I could see this being like, get to the 4th round and like both guys kind of look ugly, slow, and old, and it still creeps over. But yeah, my concern with like attacking a total, or my concern with having like conviction on it is, yeah, cuts. It's like Tony, you know, he's known as the boogeyman for a reason. It's like that's what he used to do, throw elbows and cut dudes open. It's just like that scar tissue on Nate Diaz would be a pretty big concern for me. So yeah, Ferguson money line. Don't have a really hot take on the total. I would lean to the over.
We're agreed there, Paul.
Yeah.
Paul, thank you so much for joining me on this very special and very long edition of the Undefeated post-weigh-in show. Hey, we went through the whole card. We gave you all of our thoughts and our looks on the 3 main fights that matter. I'm thinking the over 1.5 on Khamzat and Holland sounds pretty nice. I do think that the Leech is probably my look, dog or pass, for the Rodriguez and Jingliang fight. Again, maybe another over possibility. And then in the main event, we're both Team Tony. Paul, is there anything you want to throw out there betting wise? Or of course, if you want to plug something, let the people know where to find you, go right ahead, my man.
At Paul Shag on Twitter. It's literally what's written right in the bottom corner of my shot there. Pretty straightforward if you don't know me already. Yeah, follow me on Twitter. Check out the Dogger Pass podcast every single Wednesday at around 8 p.m. is when it gets uploaded on Mayo Media Network. Been doing that with my boy Cody for close to a decade. Multiple names, different networks, but the same old crew. And yeah, other than that, it's good to finally get on and chop it up with you there, Clint. It's been a long time coming.
Back at you, Paul. You're one of those guys I feel like is an internet friend at this point. I was a fan first. You and Cody are one of the people that inspired me to start podcasting. So we've been tweeting for like a good 6 or so years at this point. Definitely good to get on and actually talk with you. So we appreciate the time, man. Thanks for joining me on the show.
No problem. Anytime.
Everybody, gamble responsibly, bankroll management. Be careful this week. This card was nuts to begin with. It is not safe. So make sure you bankroll, manage appropriately. Don't risk more than you're willing to lose. And everybody, good luck. I hope you win your bets. I hope you get rich. Let's roll. We'll see you tomorrow for some fights.